That was just a video of Dante Whitner of the San Francisco 49ers making a helmet-to-helmet hit on Pierre Thomas of the New Orleans Saints last year in the divisional playoff game. CDC defines a concussion as a type of traumatic brain injury by bump, blow, jolt to the head that can change the way the brain normally works. Today, I will be highlighting the effects concussions have on NFL players. I will be discussing 3 main points: symptoms of concussions, short-term effects, and long-term effects. Symptoms. Symptoms of concussions include, but not limited to, imbalance. When a player gets a hit, they might have balancing problems, walking off the field, headaches. I've seen players grab their heads when they get a big hit on their helmets. Confusion. There's players that when they get hit, they walk to the wrong sideline, and they're just out of it. They're not sure where they're going. Loss of consciousness. That video showed Pierre Thomas laying on the ground. I think he was out about a couple minutes in that video. Vision change, blurred vision, seeing stars is a sign of concussion. Hearing changes. The training staff will be asking them a few questions, and sometimes they can't hear. That's also a sign. Fatigue, when they're sitting on the bench and they just look lost and tired. And memory loss. It is also a symptom of concussions. And the NFL has a set of questions called the NFL Concussion Assessment Questions that they ask the players. So the first one is, what month is it? What is the date today? What is the day of the week? What year is it? What time is it right now? These may be trivial questions, but when a player's suffered a concussion, they won't be able to answer some of these questions correctly. So that that just tells the training staff that he might be in trouble. So now that we know what the symptoms are, let's take a look at the short-term effects. The first short-term effect is the ability to think. The player's memory and reasoning is affected when they have a concussion or even after. Sensation, the player may experience difficulty with touch, taste, and smell. Language, the player may have difficulty with communication, expression, and understanding speech. And emotion, they experience depression, anxiety, personal changes, aggression, acting out, and social inappropriateness. So let's take a look at the more severe issue, which is the long-term effects. Recent research by Boston University Center has determined that CTE, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, is a huge concern. This can cause depression and suicide as athletes get older. Many suspect Junior Seau of the San Diego Chargers suffered from this and could have been the reason why he committed suicide last year. The next 3, defined by National Library of Medicine. Epilepsy is a neurological disorder in which a person has repeated seizures over time. Alzheimer's is a disease, the most common form of dementia among older people. There are a few players that are suffering from Alzheimer's and epilepsy that was in the lawsuit against the NFL that was settled for close to $800 billion. Parkinson's is also a cause. Parkinson's disease is a disorder of the brain that leads to shaking and difficulty walking. So those are the long-term effects of concussions. Here are a few things that the NFL is trying to make the game safer. Rule changes. For instance, a running back can't lead with their crown of their helmet anymore, like they used to, and that would have a huge effect on how they're treated for concussions or incurring concussions. You're unable to tackle a defensive receiver above the shoulders, especially when they're blindsided towards their back, or so they're unable to make any hits above the shoulder area. They're making harsher penalties on the field and even off the field. They're fining players up to $100,000 per hit. It's on an escalating scale. So the first offense, I believe, is like 10 or 15,000 for the first illegal hit. And also one of the rule changes that they made recently was moving the 35-yard kickoff line, moving it to a 35-yard line instead of a 30. So the punt returners or the kick returners have less chances of running back the kickoff. There were 200, according to the Washington Post, there were 266 reported concussions last season, including 20 on the kickoff. So therefore, the rule change did help that statistic. Today I have talked about the symptoms of concussion, short and long-term effects of concussions in the NFL. As you can see, it's an ongoing problem in the NFL, and it's part of the game. So there's not much you can do about it, but there are ways to prevent some of the concussions, like having better medical staff on the field, and just being able to tell when the player has suffered a concussion. Thank you.
All right, Lauren, what did you think?
Okay, I thought that your attention device, I thought it was pretty good. I liked the video. It was into scene, and I thought it was a good play to show. You could tell that it was a bad hit. And I thought that your speech had good organization. I thought it was pretty clear. You went from the symptoms to the short-term to the long-term effects. I thought that was a really good, the way you organized it was done very well. And the only thing is that you kind of read off the cards a lot, but that's about it.
Thank you.
Well, I'll disagree a little bit. That's not the only thing. There are a couple of other things, but there were some things that she pointed out that I think were also good. I agree. I like the video clip as your attention device. We know what the topic is right away. You got a very clear statement of your goal at the beginning of the speech. That's fine. It's a little broad, but we know where you're headed. And the preview is okay too. I'll tell you what, I think that on the visuals, you use the visuals primarily to give transitions to the ideas. Here's another idea, here's another idea, here's another idea. And sometimes you describe the ideas in very brief ways. The problem is, because there are so many of those ideas on at least two of the slides, I think there's 6 or 7 on one or 6 to 7 on the next one. That's like 14 ideas that we're getting on 2 slides, and that's a a quarter of your speech. So it's not like you spent, if you had those 14 ideas, and that's what you talked about for the 8 minutes that you were speaking about, 30 seconds on each of those, okay, then that makes a lot of sense. When you just start listing things, people's eyes will glaze over because they're never going to remember all of that stuff. It's too much detail stuff to retain in a short amount of time. So you have to kind of get to the crux of the issue. I think you could simplify some of the things you're talking about. Maybe just mention what all of those things are at one point, and then give us an example or two of those kinds of things when they happen. Tell us a story about a player who suffered from this particular problem, or here was a difficulty that they had on field as a result of this, or they think their incidents in their life might have been complicated by these sorts of ideas. Like the Junior Seau story that you did with the CTE later on, you need the same kind of thing on a couple of those points, and I think that would have been sufficient. When you went to your rule changes that you were talking about, you just stuck with the list format, and I was thinking, well, this would be a great place for you to have some obvious visuals to show what the rule changes are. So what do you mean not, no hit above the shoulders? You could show a picture with some drawings on it that indicate, here are the prohibited areas, leading with your head, the crown of your helmet. Well, you described that, and all the football fans will probably know what you're talking about, but not everybody's going to be a football fan. Not everybody is familiar with that kind of stuff. You had a video clip at the beginning. I'm sure that there are images of that kind of action by a running back doing those kinds of things. That seems like it would have fit in there very quickly. I was thinking the statistical comparison that you did after they changed the kickoff point. They measured the number of concussions there were during the season, the number that were associated with kickoffs. Was that information compared to prior seasons? That sort of thing. That would have suggested an easy kind of bar graph or something like that we could see that information on and be able to make the inference from. So I think the words on the screen thing is overused in the presentation, and you started off pretty well with the video clip, and then everything else just seemed like it's so conventional by nature. I mean, I enjoyed the way the slide came up and the little background design and everything too, but that's less important than what the content is. And so I think that you had a chance to maybe do a little bit more with the visuals on that. And so that, I think, hurt a little bit. And I will agree that you're reading too much. You need to talk to us a little bit more. You know the subject. You know what you're talking about. At most, just a few notes on the cards instead of keep looking at them over and over and over again. I already told you were here on Tuesday, right, when we said you won't be having any cards, you won't be having any notes for your next assignment. So it'll just be you and your brain, which hopefully isn't suffering from CT.